question of whether there's a discussion on the possibility of an extension of the program beyond the 3 years. There's also a statement from government indicating the decision to honor obligations which have accrued as well. That has also come up. Then we also know that there's later on a conference that is taking place this morning, the Education Review Conference. That would also have some impact depending on what measures or policies are recommended from that particular conference. It could affect our program in terms of if there is the need to make some changes, among other things. We'll have a discussion on all of these matters within the next couple of minutes that we'll have with you. And I'm joined in the studio for the discussion by Dr. Peter Tekpe. He's an economic policy analyst. Doc, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, and good morning.
I also have Hamza Suini Saib. He is a legal practitioner and also a member of the National Democratic Congress communication team. Thank you very much for joining us as well.
Thank you, my brother.
So we'll start the conversation first by taking a listen to the President, John Dramani Mahama, speaking on Ghana's engagement with the IMF. And we need to put it in context that the question he was asked had to do with whether there have been discussions or there's a consideration of whether there should be an extension of the 3-year program. Let's listen to what he had to say about this.
Had a staff visit, and so our Ministry of Finance is engaging with the IMF. There were few issues. We were not at the table when this agreement was drawn up. And so coming into government, there are a few issues that we thought we should raise with the IMF, including the issue of tax rationalization. Because of the target of achieving 24% revenue to GDP by 2028, the program required that revenue should continue increasing at a certain rate. Unfortunately, what the previous government had done was just to slap on more taxes. And we had gotten to a stage where the more taxes that were put on, the less revenue that came in. And so it's necessary for us to look at the whole tax handle, rationalize them, make them more transparent, easy to understand, so that we can have better compliance. We've had that discussion with the IMF, and the IMF have agreed to provide technical assistance for us to do that rationalization. We've not talked about an extension of the program. We are determined to continue with this program. I think that it means that we must be more prudent in our handling of our finances. We must also look on the expenditure side and see how we can cut waste and also shift resources to more priority programs. And so it's a whole basket that we're looking at. We also have the issue of the debt restructuring and the humps that have been created. This year, we have to pay in excess of 15 billion on the domestic debt exchange. So what we've done is to reactivate the sinking fund and put more resources into it to take care of the repayments that have to be made this year. But all in all, we have a cordial relation with the IMF. The next review, which will be the 4th review, is due in April. But before that, we'll present the budget in March. And so the budget will take into focus some of the issues that have come out from the staff mission. We're hoping to receive the aid memoir today or tomorrow. And looking at the issues that IMF raises, we'll incorporate them in the budget.
So you heard President John Dramani Mahama speaking on and answering the question relating to whether there's a discussion regarding an extension. And I must indicate that Nanaya Osapon, with the Movement for Change, senior aide to Alan Kojo Chairman, has joined us in the studio as well. Nanaya, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, my brother.
On Friday, we were receiving the messages you were sending through us to other people on Vows Day.
Oh, you see, Ebo has been single. So I just needed to use the opportunity to use him as a medium to transmit information.
But you don't have any message for Ebo
But
person.
did you send a message yourself?
Oh, I did. It was live on TV. I sent a wonderful message to all our loved ones across the globe. I sent it to everyone. Everyone received it. Well, so let's get into the discussion now. And I would want to start with you, Mr. Saibu. I just want to pick your understanding of what the president said. Would it be fair to say a more accurate appreciation of what he said is the fact that at this moment, government has not held discussions with the IMF with regards to the possibility of an extension, as against the view that an extension is not being considered?
I think that to a very large, good morning to our cherished viewers out there, and of course to my colleague panelists. I think that to a very large extent, the media reportage on the issue has been somehow misleading. And so for those of us who are familiar with His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama, when I heard the news, I was a bit skeptical. I was clear on my mind that, look, this couldn't have been the intention of President John Dramani Mahama to indicate that his government was going to reject any possible extension of the IMF-ECF agreement. And so I had to do some due diligence by going back to the interview myself, and there it was. That was clearly not the intention. I think that there's a need for us to have an understanding of what the ECF is in the first place. Remember that this is not the first time President Mahama is dealing with issues of the extended credit facility as far as the IMF arrangements are concerned. Indeed, he did so when he was president somewhere 2014. And the duration is supposed to be 3 years as part of that particular arrangement. But there are possible issues or maybe unforeseen challenges that might result in an extension of another 2 years. So clearly, if you look at the operations of the IMF, they are pretty much convinced that within 3 years, a country that is serious, dedicated, and committed to reform must actually achieve the objectives of the ECF. And so that is what President Mahama is simply saying, because he signed it in 2014 and expected it to run for 3 years. So the end period was meant to be in 2017. The new government led by His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, upon assumption of office, thought it prudent to go for an additional extension of 2 years, which resulted in its ending somewhere 2019 or so. You see, in the case of President Mahama, he is not ruling out a possibility of an extension. All what he is saying is that we signed a 3-year program with the IMF. Let us stay committed to achieving those objectives. We should not jump the gun by talking about possible extension when we are still more or less dedicated to achieving the program objectives. If we are talking about extension now, clearly it is simply telling the IMF that, look, based on the program objectives that we signed for 3 years, we are unlikely by 2016 to meet the objectives. President Mahama is simply saying that, look, as a serious government, there's the need for us to stay committed. There's the need for us to actually achieve the set objectives. And so for us, at this critical moment, discussion has not even gotten to the level of extension. Discussion should be around the possibility of achieving the set objectives as far as the 3-year agreement is concerned, which is due to come to an end, I think, in 2026. Yes. And that is a smart thing to do. That is a respectable position to take. I've always said that, look, in this country, there's a need for us to pay close attention to our leaders. And someone like President Mahama, it is not enough to scrutinize policies of political parties without trying to understand the personalities driving them. And those of us who are fortunate to have been inside the four corners of classroom in terms of an appreciation of international political economy, we know that there's a joint or an interdependent relationship between international relations and, to a very large extent, economics. And so if you look at how he has been moving, even before assumption of office, President Mahama had an understanding of the impact of political occurrences, not just local, but international, and the possible implications that could have on our Ghanaian economy. That is why, upon assumption, the first thing he did was to expand our international relations frontiers, especially within Africa. Yeah. Because knowing the politics of President Trump, he knew, even before the swearing in, that there were going to be certain decisions from the Trump-led administration that could have serious implications for the Ghanaian economy. And to be able to more or less respond to those challenges, there was the need for him to rally around the African continent. That informed, to a very large extent, his outreach program as far as the African heads of states are concerned. And in the same program, if you listen to him carefully, he indicated that there was a need for Africa to define or identify its own fiscal and financing regime. And he called for the establishment of the African Central Bank, African Investment Bank, for us to give it the needed impetus to be able to provide the needed financing, support for African countries. So you realize that we are dealing with a president who knows that even in your engagements with institutions like IMF, they are largely political. Okay. Because economic decisions influence political outcomes, and the reverse too is true. Okay. So President Mahama would not stoop so low to using words like reject when he knows the political implications of such utterances as far as the international multilateral organizations are concerned, even on our economic objectives. So clearly, I think that at this country, if our leaders appreciate that difficulty, it behoves on us, the media as well, to demonstrate some level of responsibility in our reportage. Because if this country ought to evaluate the potential losses that would have accrued as at yesterday because of misleading headlines of this, you would be amazed. You see, reports of this nature have serious consequences.
I don't disagree with you in terms of the content, and that is how come even when I was asking the question, I drew the parallels between the two.
Yes.
But it comes back to the point that at this stage, at least at this stage, we know that a decision has not been taken on an extension. You agree
Absolutely,
with that?
but you see, it is also...
No, I don't disagree. I don't disagree with you on the other points.
I don't, but the point I'm simply making is that there's the need for us to also appreciate that when we elect governments or parties into office, the responsibility is not just on them to develop. We also have to bear a brand of that particular responsibility, especially those of us in the media. Because you see, if this country can quantify, like I indicated, the reportage, the effects of that reportage, misleading headlines, could be there. Let us demonstrate that responsibility. For me, I think that President Mahama is taking a bold decision. He's reflecting what some of us anticipated when we're going around campaigning for him, and he's demonstrating that indeed experience is back at the presidency. It is the reason why that in such utterances of this nature, he has demonstrated that tact and appreciation of even taking maybe problematic posture that could be injurious to our economy. And the media should follow in that step.
Let me bring in Doc. And Doc, the reason I drew Saib's attention to the two views that have been expressed on what the president said was, I had taken the view that it may be too early for the government to conclusively say that an extension was ruled out. The reason being that the first budget will be presented in a couple of weeks. There's a major review that will be taking place later on. When you heard the president speak, what was your own understanding of what he had said?
Thank you very much. And once again, good morning to our cherished viewers and my co-panelists. In fact, what the economy needs now is confidence. Because the challenge that took us to IMF was because our what I call the numerator and the denominator. And when I talk of the numerator and the denominator, I'm talking of the debt and then GDP. When your economy is not expanding and your borrowing is ballooning, then the challenge is that you hit the ceiling, and that is what happened, where our debt went high. And when you don't have confidence in the economy, you don't have investors coming in, then definitely it doesn't matter how your debt levels are, you still not be able to achieve your fiscal, target. And so what the president need now, what the economy need now, is to bring back confidence into the economy, whereby we'll be able to expand our GDP so that we can have enough fiscal space. And so what I see from the president's discussions is that he wants to make every attempt to bring back confidence to the economy, whereby instead of portraying that if we do extension now, that means that our fundamentals are indeed bad. You don't have to, it's just like washing your dirty clothes in public. So what do you do to let investors know that things are, the economy is really turning the corner? And so if you go ahead to say that you are going to do extension, it means that you are saying that your hands are tied. And if in that, in the previous IMF program that Ghana went, we were still able to go to the capital market. And so, now when MPP took over, they were still going to the capital market, they were still borrowing. This time around, that is not the case. And so you have a lot of, promises that you want to fulfill as well. But you are constrained in terms of fiscal space. So what do? You have to then instill confidence in the economy to allow the economy to expand. Let people come in. And so don't let people know that your hands are tight and there's nothing you cannot do. That is the reason why we don't have to even default in terms of obligations that are falling due to be paid. And that is the most important thing, because if you are expanding the economy, then it's just like, let me give you a very basic example. As an individual, if you are earning income, anytime your salary goes up, you have the space to then borrow if you want to borrow. So you know that when you are going to borrow money from the bank, they will tell you that you cannot take up to a certain percentage of your salary. The moment there is an increase of your salary, then it means that you have enough space to go and borrow. So you can then go and borrow more. That is exactly what is also happening in the economy. We can also go and, so if our economy is expanding, then it means that even if debt are rising and you have your denominator, which is the GDP, going up, then debt doesn't become an issue.
You still have a bit of room.
You still have a bit of room. And that is where the focus should be. And so all discussions with government officials, with finance, the Minister of Finance and other government spokesperson, in terms of the IMF and the economy, the focus should be how to instill confidence in the economy and not either try to put in the blame game, try to, tell people that we really have problems, or let the world know that we really have problems. When you continue to do that, don't forget that the investors who come into the economy, they are not looking at what you are doing, but they are looking at what the macro indicators are pointing at, based on what the rating agencies, for instance, are also talking about. And so if you are still, under default rating, you are still under negative outlook, and then you don't work out to correct or reverse that, and you still portray that there's a challenge, then definitely you will not be able to achieve that fiscal space, that confidence you want to bring to the economy. So the message from the president is, I would say, is strategic to ensure that there's confidence, so that even if there is the need to do extension, it's too early for you to be saying it, because that is not what the economy needs now.
We have more than a year to the end of the program, and Nanaya, the president said that, well, the focus now is stability, to try to bring some stability in, and he makes reference to that major review that will take place in April. How do you process all of what we are seeing happening?
Good morning to you and the viewers. And lately, most people also listen whilst they are driving on Facebook and other mediums. So, good morning to our listeners. My brother.
He's become a rich man over
oh, really?
Oh, you can tell from his change is good.
So I just want to focus. You didn't attend a good school.
Don't worry, focus, just focus.
President Mahama is an excellent communicator. And yesterday when I had listened to him and I had the opportunity to read some of the headlines and the stories that were made out of his presentation, I laughed a bit and I got worried for some of our reporters and how they would want to project Ghana. When you have read the book of Joel, chapter 3, the verse 10, the B part, it says that let the weak say, I am strong. It is not though the weak is strong, but then you portray that you are strong. Psychologically, it heals you. So, as Doc said, the main focus of the president was to kind of turn around and boost up economic confidence and draw investor attention and also grow the investor confidence in our economy. And so we are with the IMF, and then the president says that an extension is not our focus, but how to recover the economy is what we are looking at. Stabilizing our economy and growing it is what is most important. Let's not forget that the current government has a policy direction, and their policy direction towards recovering this economy and growing it is what they have termed the 24-hour economy.
Yeah.
Now, how are you able to build on the 24-hour economy to achieve it when you do not have investor confidence? When the confidence, even locally, in your economy is lost. Now, you will notice that even captains of industry try to hold back their investment and stop all expansions when there is no confidence in the economy. Why? Because they are not certain what the future holds. And so, if the president of the nation tells us that, yes, we are with IMF, yes, there is an opportunity per the conditionalities for an extension, but that is not what we are looking at. He's just sending a signal that we are fixing the fundamentals again. And for that matter, whoever has interest in investing into the Ghanaian economy should be rest assured that we are poised to growing what we have, but not going to depend solely on what IMF has in stock for us. And the indicators are there. So you see, the focus after he has said this should rather be on how do we achieve on getting back onto our feet as an economy. We're running with a 24-hour economy. How do we achieve that? Because that is the end result. I was telling some economic, those who read the theory, I was telling them that the 24-hour economy, in my view, is an end result. There is a need for us to ride in some vehicles and achieve certain grounds to be able to get to 24-hour economy. We should be looking at our infrastructure. How do we attract foreign direct investment into our infrastructure? Because we don't have the money. How do we improve on our security? How are we able to ensure a proper collaboration between the finance ministry, the agric ministry, and the trade and industry, so that they are able to coordinate very well? Because you cannot achieve any better economic stance if these three ministries or entities do not play the courts well. I don't know if you make an understanding of what I'm saying.
I get you.
So you see, once he has said this, it puts us on a certain tone. It puts us on a certain tone to be able to have a straight up thinking. Yesterday when I read the news about the payment of the DDEP, the pensioners, I was excited. I said, on the back of him saying that we are focusing on growing our economy, he's telling the investors that, listen, we are not going to take your money. We are paying back. We've made progress. For the first time in the history of our nation, we saw a former Chief Justice on the streets of Ghana demonstrating, not for herself, but for many of her colleague pensioners who could not even afford medication. And so that was how bad the economy, the image of our economy became. And so there is a need for us to bring back that confidence. And it should not take away the discourse from how do we get there to whether or not it was prudent for him to have said we are not going to, or we are considering not extending our stay with the IMF. In any case, is that what we want as a people? I am a young man. I am looking at a Ghana where there will be a lot of jobs created.
Okay.
You understand me? I mean, look at Cocoa Board. You think that we cannot create jobs with cocoa board if we decide to add value to just the exportation of the beans? Even if we add 30% value to the beans, the framework of adding that 30% has the potential of creating thousands of jobs.
Okay.
It has the potential of increasing that inflows that we are looking for.
And Nanaya, one thing that you made reference to had to do with the coupon payment, and let's just get into that briefly, because the president, we have a statement that came from the government, Presidency Communications. It indicated that following a directive from President John Dramani Mahama, the Ministry of Finance has today, that is the 17th of February, that was yesterday, honored the payment in cash of coupon of that is 6 billion cedis to all domestic debt exchange program bondholders. It also goes on to say that the government has honored the payment in kind as well, that is 3.46 billion. And so that statement is on your screen now. It says, following a directive from President John Dramani Mahama, the Ministry of Finance has today, 17 February 2025, honored the payment in cash PIC coupon of 6 billion cedis to all domestic debt exchange program bondholders. Government has also honored the payment in kind portion of 3.46 billion deposited into the respective bondholder securities accounts in line with the DDEP memorandum. Additionally, government has also paid into the debt service recovery CD account, that is a sinking fund, an amount of 59.7 billion as a buffer for the fifth DDEP coupon that will fall due in July and August of 2025. President Mahama is committed to the government's honoring of all obligations under the DDEP. Through the 2025 budget statement, the government will announce further measures that will help to restore market confidence in the economy, prioritize spending, and improve transparency and accountability in public finances. And that is what the Presidency Communications put out there. And this morning I saw a post that has been put out by the former Finance Minister, Dr. Amin Adam. And I mean, I'm not too sure what to make of it, but the concluding part of that post basically says that he makes the point that there were some payments that the previous government had made, and he talks about the first payment that was done in August 2023. He talks about the second one in February 2024, and the third one in August 2024, to simply make the point that this particular payment was due. And the environment within which he has made this post was when comments on social media were basically patting the government on the back for honoring its obligations. I'm sure you've seen that post, Said. What did you make of that?
It was a bit strange to me, especially knowing Dr. Mohamed Amin Anta, because I was a bit disappointed in the early morning politicking that he engaged in, especially considering the fact that this government is trying to at least run a very transparent system. Because I read the post and I was struggling to appreciate, beyond the politics, what he actually intended to achieve. Because you simply don't see that you made the first, second, and third payments and made provisions for the subsequent payments to be made, without telling us how much was left behind in terms of your debt buffers. What this government has done is not simply to honor these financial obligations, but to also communicate to the good people of this Ghana, and to a very large extent, its international partners, that look, we have a strategy in place to ensure that we do not default in these payments. And like Doug indicated, these are some of the activities or actions that are required to bring back investor confidence in our country. So if you look at the directive of President Mahama, he simply did not say, honor the fourth coupon dividends to bondholders. No. He proceeded to establish the sinking fund and indicated, as we speak, how much has been left in that particular sinking fund. And if you read the entire directive, I think about 9 billion Ghana cedis has also been reserved to take care of the next payment that would be due somewhere July, August this year. So that is the kind of forwardness we are talking about. That is the kind of strategy we are dealing with.
I mean,
and so
your friends in the MPP, I mean, their response is that, look, you can't blame Dr. Amin Adam for wanting to put those facts out. And their reason will be that, look, when good things happen, the government, even though very young and yet to put out your own budget, you take credit quickly. When there's a bad thing, you quickly go back and say that, look, it's from the past.
Absolutely not. If you look at the conduct of this government so far, even when we were first sworn into office and were confronted with the energy challenges, we dealt with it head on. That was what led to the quick announcement of the energy minister then, that of the finance minister, and of course the attorney general. It was not for nothing that President Mahama decided to appoint these three people, because he knew that there was a need for him to go straight into work and not to engage in any blame game. That has never been part of his politics. And so we are confronting issues as they should be confronted. And like I indicated, we have demonstrated, even with this release, how we intend to run the economy of this country. It is not just going to be based on attracting investor confidence, but to a very large extent, being transparent with the kind of initiatives we are talking about. And if you read it very well and you are familiar with the NDC position when it comes to the management of the economy, it will be interesting to note and find out that, look, all what is happening is simply in line with what the NDC promised to do. Remember, in opposition, we indicated that there was the need for the government then to consider the re-establishment of the sinking fund, so that it will give confidence to our debtors that, look, this government has a plan in place to ensure that it meets its financial obligations. It fell on deaf ears. Today, President Mahama is back, and we have established the sinking fund. We all know the good works of the sinking fund, even prior to 2016. Remember that it was one of the vehicles that helped this government to retire fully President Kufuor's Eurobond of 2007. That amounted to about 750 million USD. It was the President John Dramani Mahama forwardness, progressive thinking, that resulted in the establishment of that sinking fund that eventually swept off that particular debt obligation. And so we are back to the table, and we are assuring the good people of this country that in managing the economy of this country, we will do so with utmost fidelity to the principles of transparency, like we've always done in the past. So this needless attempt of Dr. Mohamed Amin Anta to more or less take glory as far as this initiative is concerned is a bit problematic for me. And that is the more reason why those of us in the media must do the critical job of getting them to account for their stewardship. He was in office, he never indicated to us that there were buffers in stock to ensure that this DDEP is implemented effectively in terms of honoring their debts. We have done so. And we have indicated where those monies are lodged. And here we are making reference to the sinking fund. You see, the problem with the new patriotic party is that at any point in time, they simply do not appreciate the difference between politics and governance for the good people of this country. So for them, everything is politics. I would have expected Dr. Mohamed Amin Anta to be commending this government for detailing how it intends to continue with what they started in terms of the DDEP. And we are giving a boost to it. We have not said anywhere that they handled it badly, but we just thought that it could have been handled differently and in a more transparent manner. And His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama is engaged in that. We are not willing to allow ourselves to be brought into this needless comparison with the previous government. In any case, there's no comparison to be made, because we are convinced that the rejection that was handed to them by the Ghanaian people is enough verdict. And so we don't need to waste enormous energy trying to engage in competitive politicking with these guys. We are focused. His Excellency John Dramani Mahama is committed. And we are promising the good people of this country that, look, when it comes to the economy, we will do everything within our power to reset the Ghanaian economy once again. And at least to bring us back on a journey of sustainable recovery this time around.
I mean, Dr. Elia, you made the point about investor confidence, and Mr. Sapon also made reference to that. I mean, in times past, we've seen obligations that government has basically struggled to meet. You still hold the view that this coupon commitment also is a step in that direction as well, giving the investor community the sense that, well, we're on a certain right path, and they can trust that when we owe you, we are going to pay you.
Yeah, certainly. You know, when you have a long list of problems to address, you have to prioritize it. So you put it on the scale of preference, and then you see what is needed to be done now for the future benefit. And the economic challenges was a major factor in the last election. And so the attention to economic recovery and confidence is key. And even if there is no money to honor these obligations, it needs to be prioritized. And it is in the right direction that the president has given the directive. You know, I indicated that what the president is doing is to do as much as possible to bring back that confidence that has left the economy. Because one of the challenges of the economy is that because there's no government that can strive or succeed without external support. But when such support is out, then that's where the challenge is. The reason is that most of government projects are not commercial in nature. They are social. And so government cannot build hospitals, government cannot build roads, and then the roads will generate enough income to pay itself. And so in the past, most of the loans that Ghana goes for, that we go for, goes into consumption. And so nothing comes out of it. And so if you don't let other aspects or other sectors of the economy grow on its own, then there will be a challenge. And the reason is because most government major policies are rolled out as political programs and not national programs. And so there's always a rush. That is the reason why we need to look at the cycle and see what to bring into the cycle so that others behind it can also feed on it. And so what has been done is to ensure that we outside the cycle, who are available such that when things are going well within the cycle, then others outside will also benefit. And so when you bring in that confidence and you let people know that, oh, even though we are in difficulty, the economy is challenged, when they see that you are paying your debt, because it's like an individual who, want to build a credit score system for yourself. When you have, the ability to honor your obligations, even when times are tough, that gives a sense of your priority and your focus. So that is what will make people keep putting in money into your economy, even when the economy is challenged.
Absolutely.
And so that is what is in there, because the real sector suffers more when you don't have confidence coming to the economy. And so let me give you a typical example. We say inflation is coming down, for instance, because where we were in 2022
when
at
we went for
54,
even the program, we're doing 40% plus.
Correct. Now we are at 22 level.
Yeah.
But you see, what the difference between the real economy and that level is that is based on your consumption. So for instance, if inflation is, inflation is a basket. You will bring a couple of items together and you average it. If the item that you are consuming, the price is high, even though the average inflation is low, you will not see any impact, because if you are buying bread, you consume a lot of bread, and the prices of bread is going up. If you consume a lot of, meat, and the price of meat is going up, and then they're telling that inflation is going down, so indicatively the macro indicators are showing that the economy is pointing in the right direction, you will see them not to be telling you the truth, because what you are seeing, they are not seeing it.
Very different. Yeah.
Very different. And so what needs to be done to bring the real economy to a stable level is what is important. And these are some of them, because the people who are affected by the DDEP are the people who feed or rely on the real economy. And so what do you do then? That is why you have to prioritize your problems and then look at what has to be done now to get the benefit tomorrow. That is why this is very important.
The president made reference to the major review that will take place in April 2024. And we know that the IMF team, they were in Ghana from the 10th to the 14th. And they actually issued a statement where they indicated that they had various engagements with governments and had discussions on policies that will underpin the 2025 budget. You made reference that in their first budget, they're going to take off e-levy. In fact, the manifesto says the first 100 days. E-levy is going, COVID levy would go as well. The 10% on bet winning as well will also go. The emission levy was also mentioned. Maybe an extension is not being considered now, but definitely whatever review will be taking place, we'll have to have serious discussions about some of our revenue targets, realigning them, looking at our expenditure, because we are going to lose some money going in this particular direction.
In fact, these taxes, the impact it has brought to businesses, for me, they have to go. Maybe not all at a go, but we can face them. The reason is that these taxes has actually destabilized our manufacturing sector. And that is where employment is created. These taxes have caused an increase in smuggling goods into the system. And so you have somebody who is producing locally in the country. I don't want to mention specific names, but in the manufacturing sector where we have people producing, they have employed, they build factories, and then they are slashed with these taxes. So for instance, you import raw material, you pay duty at the port, you produce, you add 6% levy plus VAT, you send it to the market, your wholesalers buy, they also add the tax. So by the time it gets to the retailer, there are about almost 18% layers tax that has been added. Somebody looks at it and he is not able to pay. At the port, the depreciation of the currency, so duties keep rising. He looks at it and finds a way of, look at our borders, very porous. So he brings in the same goods through the wrong route, goes into the market, and then he sells it. Here is the case where the one who is manufacturing, who is paying the bills, who has to pay the taxes, because of this, the activities of these smugglers, he's not able to sell. They are not paying the tax. They don't employ anyone because he brings it straight into the market. Jobs will be lost, government revenue will be lost, and then when it happens like that, then you see the economy struggling. And so anything that has to be done to revive this sector of the economy needs to be done. And so if these taxes have created these kind of challenges, then what do? Do you look at removing these taxes that will boost the manufacturing sector such that more people will be employed, government will get revenue, because then when it happens like that, more people will also be paying taxes as well, because the more the production volumes increases, the more you see people also paying taxes as well. Then the activities of the smugglers will be cut off. And so if this is not done, I'm telling you that this is what is going to happen.
So you're looking at more of like a natural growth as against maybe looking at alternative tax and those that could replace them.
Exactly, because when you are in an economy where the economy has turned into a trading economy, you see that you are investing a lot into the economy, but you don't see the result. Let me give you a typical example. For instance, in the agri sector or in the agribusiness, and let's say in the financial sector, these two sectors. If you take the financial sector, for instance, we have the banks. You know, when we came back from the DDEP, just a year after, most of the banks were all making huge profits. Just after a year, they were all making huge profit. But this is not impacting the economy. You know why? Because the majority of the banks are foreign banks. So even though money is being made in the economy, it's going back. And so it requires intentional programs that will cost money to remain in the economy so that it can be able to expand. And so the reason why these taxes needed to go is that so that it will help the local economy to grow. It's only when the local economy grows that you'll be able to have enough fiscal space. And like I said, we need to grow the denominator, and that is the most important thing.
Mr. Sapo, you agree with that? I mean, I was making a point about some of these campaign promises and their potential impact.
Absolutely. And I think that I used Cocoa Board as an example when I was doing my first submission, that if Dr. Randiabe decides with his team that they are going to have to rethink and reposition Cocoa Board, just Cocoa Board alone, to add even 30% value to the beans before they are being exported. All right, it is not only going to create more jobs.
But now we even have production issues. Yesterday I was listening to the Agri Minister, and it's important I bring this to your attention. I mean, very worrying development. A significant quantity of beans that we owe that we've not paid. So we are supposed to even, and in terms of our current production volumes, it adds up to more than half of.
It sells forward. We've sold it already.
Yeah. and if you look at it in relation to our production volumes,
we've sold
it means
it
that if we don't make significant production, more than half of our commodities already gone.
We've sold it already. See, so you know what? In Ghana, we are not dealing or trying to resolve issues. Now, when something becomes a matter of security, it cannot be resolved. It can only be managed. And probably I think that our leaders will need to move beyond issues of management into trying to bring in solutions, practical solutions. Look, a clear example of what you were saying, the agri sector. Let us decide that this year we are focusing on rice production. All right. And so that becomes our focus in terms of import substitution. Rice. We already have a certain percentage of market, ready markets. And which are these? We have our senior high schools. We have our colleges of education. We have our state agencies. These are ready markets because it is government that gives them money to go and buy. So now government decides that you are not going to buy foreign rice. We go to our rice farmers, the millers. We ask them, what quantity are you able to produce? They tell us. Then we buy it and give it to these institutions. It's ready market. Now, when this happens, the investor will not be scared putting money into that business. Why? Because it will not, those productions or the products will not remain on the shelves. But when we do not make deliberate attempts or put in deliberate efforts to control some of these economic elements, let us forget it.
I think we have.
This is
just mismanaged. Remember the initial objective of the national buffer stock.
Yeah, no, I mean that is what. So there should be that political will to do it. We have these automobile industries in this country. The automobile development policy, which was brought up by Alan Chomatin. Why should we have assembling companies in Ghana, yet we decide as state agencies that want to buy cars and we go to Dubai and South Africa to go and buy cars? When we have Kantanka, we have Nissan, we have Toyota, all of them here in Ghana. Let us assume that they do not produce the model that we want to buy. Why are we not able to use the model they are producing or assembling here in Ghana? If indeed we want to grow our economy. These are deliberate efforts. If we are able to have a relook at the tax regime, as they're proposing, taking away the e-levies, taking away the all of the nuisance tax. If we are able to deal with the current business interest rates, which is between 35% up, and we are able to manage to bring it down into the single digits, businesses and business owners would expand, they would grow, and in doing this, the interesting aspect of it is that it becomes a value chain, because we will not have people sitting at home saying they do not have jobs to do. Because once the businesses are expanding, once industry, manufacturing is expanding, they will need more hands.
Okay.
Once they get more hands, it means that people would have money on them. If we are able to deal with the import substitution, it means that we are not only bringing prices down, because indirectly, the smuggler he's talking about, when it's not in the system, we're able to control the prices to an extent. They might not agree with me, but practically, if you go to Makola market, they are the real dealers of our inflation. And so practically it has an impact there. And so you see, if you have that deliberate focus on wanting a transformed economy through a proper blend of agribusiness and industry, we are done.
Okay. Let me have you have a final take on this issue, and if you can just, I don't know what your thoughts generally are, but if you could also add it to the point about the promises that have been made and the challenge and the state of the economy that has been inherited. I mean, yesterday I was listening to the energy minister, and every government official you listen to is like there's a big problem everywhere.
It is not as if there's a big problem everywhere. Indeed, we knew even before the elections that this country was having serious economic challenges, unheard of, especially under the Fourth Republic. It was not hidden to any person. It is not because the energy minister is saying it or other sector ministers are talking about challenges in their sector. We've always known. That was what led us to that first historic DDEP and, of course, our official creditor engagements with our external debtors. So clearly, we all knew what any new government was coming to inherit. Never have we had this situation before, especially under the Fourth Republican Constitution. So it is not as if it was hidden. We knew. And that is the more reason why, as a government, His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama is not doubling in excuses. He's moved swiftly into action to confronting some of these challenges. And I can allay the fears of my brother. I think the track record of the National Democratic Congress is there in that light. That's why I quickly made reference to the National Buffer Stock Company when it was being established. The overall objective was simply to see how we could mobilize internal resources to empower our farmers to be able to at least produce the needed requirements for consumption locally, and to a very large extent to ensure that exports too will take the needed advantage from it.
Okay.
All hope is not lost, because we all know that fast forward after 2016, that buffer stock company was turned into something else, mismanaged, and all what it was interested in doing was buying exported commodity, especially rice and other food grains from foreign companies to be able to supply to our senior high schools and to a very large extent to our teacher training colleges. But currently, if you look at the manifesto of the National Democratic Congress, President Mahama indicated his obsession with agriculture mechanization centers. The whole idea is simply to open up the agriculture sector, take advantage of that sector to be able to improve our economic outlook. And so National Buffer Stock Company, once again, would have a role to play in that whole agriculture drive.
All right.
We have reached a stage in this country where we need to look each other in the eyes and be candid when it comes to our economic fortunes. I know from where I sit, and based on the information I have, that the journey to recovery is not going to be an easy one. But I am consoled by the fact that we have a president that is ready to listen and to communicate challenges to the Ghanaian people so that holistically we can come together and find acceptable solutions to our economic challenges, like Doc indicated. You see, wisdom is not in the head of a single person. That is why the National Democratic Congress, led by His Excellency President Mahama, from day one, has instituted what we call the Economic Task Force. That is tasked with the responsibility of engaging Ghanaians so that we can fashion out an acceptable model that will take us out of our economic woes. So it's work in progress. We have that track record. But as for the economic sectors of this country in terms of rationalization of taxes, he indicated even yesterday in his engagement with the media, or the day before yesterday, that there was a need for this country to consider the possibility of rationalizing our taxes. And I agree with Doc. It has nothing to do with the number of tax regimes that you have. If your tax regimes are not rationalized, at the end of the day, you are going to miss out on your own economic objectives. Because you would think that you are growing economically, but those at the base will be struggling. So there's the need for us to come out with policies that would impact the base. And so it is one of the reasons why we decided to take out, we made a commitment to taking out the e-levy, because a chunk of the economy revolves, especially the informal sector, revolves on that space. So there's the need for us to give them some respite as far as this turbulent economic outlook of our country is concerned. But
30 seconds on that.
There is a difference establishing agencies and giving them a task from having a strategic plan in implementing or executing the policies
The strategic plan.
You understand?
My
So
brother. You see, that's why I mentioned about mismanagement. You see, you are missing the point. When the national buffer stock was being established, there was a strategic outlook. And I have also just given you an example of how we intend to link that agricultural mechanization center to the national buffer stock. No, the strategy is there. The problem has always had to do with mismanagement.
Just hold on.
How would
the
buffer stock have a strategic plan and yet be allowed to buy and import foreign products for their program?
I mean, he makes the point about how it's
not about mismanagement. No, you see, if you have the plan, you cannot tell me that it has been mismanaged.
No, but then somebody would be held responsible.
Then there wouldn't be the need for us to have the word mismanagement in our dictionary, my brother.
Mismanage it. I mean,
that's mismanagement.
Where does buffer stock get the money to buy and import these products? So who sanctions it?
So it's mismanagement.
Who sanctions it?
I mean, that's
so
fine.
If they had a strategic plan to probably get the Agri Ministry involved and get our farmers to produce for them to buy directly from them, we will not have this. So it means there is a clear policy implementation.
So that's mismanagement. Just bring it in.
Anyway, that's fine.
Because somebody
let's move on to another major issue. And Mr. Saibu made reference to the economic conference that is taking place. We know that one is taking place today. That is the National Education Review Conference, and it's all part of the government's manifesto pledge. You know that the president, when he was campaigning as candidate for the NDC, had indicated that, look, they were going to review the education, state of education. Reference was made to the free SHS, among other things. And yesterday, even before the conference that takes place today, the education minister gave us a sense of some of the changes that they intend to make in terms of our current education structure.
I accept it as a wake-up call. He is urging government and the states that when we promise free, which the free will mean investment in infrastructure, investment in textbooks and exercise books, investment in the quality of teachers. He assures me again that he would invest in motivating teachers in this particular area to give their best to our young people. I am particularly happy to announce that PTAs will be introduced back into the management of education under the presidency of Excellency Dr. Mahama. So work for parents and teachers to work together to improve learning outcomes in our educational institutions, and for PTAs to support our educational institutions.
You heard Education Minister Haruna Idrisu speaking there, and we are indicating the conference is taking place today in the Volta region. We'll be bringing you a live coverage of that particular event and all that will happen there as well. And I want to start first with you, Mr. Saibu, on this particular conference and the suggestion that they are bringing PTA back. I mean, the previous government's argument for taking, in fact, not that they disbanded it completely, but just the fact that they were not as powerful as they were previously. So, for instance, PTA levies were taken off completely. And the explanation was that if the PTA levy is on the bill, you have the potential that the students would have to pay something, for which reason they may be sent away from school because they can't pay that particular levy that has been imposed. I mean, what's the idea behind the decision to bring it back?
I think basically the idea to bring it back is rooted to a very large extent on partnership as far as our educational sector is concerned between parents and teachers. That has always been a bedrock, especially considering pre-tertiary education in Ghana. And I remember a school like Tia Amadi, I think they commissioned their IMF, there was a name, their PTA somewhere in 1982. So that tells you that the policy rationale behind PTAs dates back to the 80s. And it has been with the educational system for some time now. All what it needed was fine-tuning. Because in the past, any revenue that was raised by the PTAs were handled by them, and it was outside the public financing bucket of this country. What it simply meant was that we're having challenges in terms of accountability for these funds. Fast forward 2013, President John Dramani Mahama thought it prudent to bring it mainstream. That was after the Auditor General's discoveries of issues related to PTA funds. So it was then agreed that the teachers should have an active interest in how these funds were managed. And to a very large extent, most of them were now being run by the institutions and teachers, so that at the end of the financial year, they could be audited as public funds. Because whichever way you look at it, dues paid by parents to support our educational development ought to be treated as public funds. So that decision was taken. So that tells you the trajectory of progress associated with PTAs. So what the new government needed to do was simply to maintain it, even if you are introducing free senior high school. Because there is still the need for collaboration between parents and that of our teachers.
Okay, Saibo, I'll just have you hold on just a second for me. Let me just have this engagement quickly with Dr. Peter Patianti, because he's actually at a conference and he'll be doing a presentation over there shortly. So let me just have this engagement with him. Dr. Anti, thank you so much for joining us. First, I just want to pick, as you are walking into this particular conference, what's top of your mind in terms of some of the issues that you think should generate the discussion in terms of changes that could possibly be made to our entire educational system?
Thank you very much. I think that this is an important milestone in our education journey. We have an opportunity to ensure that there is a collaborative effort in designing educational policies and the way forward for education in this country. I believe that we will have a very fruitful discussion, and collectively, whatever we agree on will be what will be binding to this government and subsequent governments in the direction that education needs to take. So I'm just here with a clear mind and expectation that we'll achieve a lot after we walk out of this place.
I mean, even before the engagement begins, the minister has indicated, and I was picking the thoughts of a member of the panel on this issue about the Parent Teachers Association. Where do you stand on why government took it off, and what do you think its reintroduction would make any significant changes in terms of our current structure?
You see, one of the biggest challenges in our educational system is school accountability. And school accountability is a collective role by the education officials and parents, and then we have the external people who will come in, and then the teachers and so on and so forth. That you cannot have a situation whereby you have only parents coming to the school and meet. I always ask myself, what are they discussing? You need this kind of collaboration between the teacher and the parent. Why? Because the child's beginning socialization starts from the house. So it's the parent that begins the socialization process, and the child is entered into educational institution. So you need to have that constant interaction between the teachers and the student, and the parents, to ensure the progress of the child, to know the challenges that the teachers are facing, to know the nature of the nature and way by which these kids were brought up, so that teachers can also assist the children to their best potential. You can't do this by only having a parent association. So for me, from day one, I've not been in support of this, and I'm very happy that the teachers are going to join the parents in their deliberation about how to move the child's education forward, how to move the educational system that the children are in forward, and find possible ways and means to support the child's upbringing.
I mean, funding for free SHS has always been a big issue, and there have been suggestions about the need to even take a decision on whether we should be paying for everyone. I'm sure this is something that will come up strongly. Where are you leaning generally on this particular subject?
Interestingly, I'm doing the presentation on education financing. I will be happy if we have a discussion after this, because I want to ensure that we have a collective way after the discussion has ended. But I believe that there should be other ways of supporting government funding of free senior high school. How and what that other way will be, I think the firm will agree on.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Peter Anti. We'll leave you now so that you go and prepare for that particular presentation, and subsequently we'll have a conversation about your views on education financing and the other issues that will come up at this particular conference that is taking place in the Volta region. And like we're indicating, it's the Education Review Conference that is taking place in the Volta region as part of government's pledge prior to winning the election, and also the fact that government says that, look, there need to be some changes in the educational system to improve it. And Mr. Saibu, you're making a point about the importance of the collaboration between the parents and the teachers as part of the management of our schools. If you can just land on that point for me.
He re-emphasized the point I was making about the need for that collaboration between parents and teachers. Look, I have been a teacher before. I remember as a teacher in Yende Presby Primary School, one of the most important pillars of our school was basically the PTAs, because at that time we had so many challenges and we did not have the luxury of time to wait for intervention by government institutions. So we engaged the parent-teacher associations and we worked out modalities to be able to confront some of these challenges, even before the state intervened. So clearly, that tells you the importance. When it comes to training a child, you as the teacher may pretend to have all the skills under the sun, but the emotional disposition of the child, their special needs, because Ghana is still developing, you may lack information on that. But when you have a platform like the Parents-Teachers Associations, when they meet, they simply don't meet to discuss revenues to support the running of the educational institutions. There are so many decisions that they need to take that borders on the welfare of the students. And so when you limit it to just revenues, and based on which, because of your obsession with Free Senior High School and the need for you to get the political capital out of it, you succeed in disbanding it. You are simply doing a great disservice. You are doing the people a great disservice, because that architecture designed to be a partner to central government in terms of the policing of our education would be lost. And so for many of us, that is the reason why I thought it prudent that in a more or less positioning our educational sector, there's the need for us to consider a reintroduction of the PTAs. Look, when it comes to the levies, government can find ways of fine-tuning it and ensuring that it is not done in a way that will jeopardize the objective of Free Senior High School. That can be done. In any case, that is the essence of the educational conference. But I do not know the kind of discussions that the educational minister has had with sector players. But I'm pretty much convinced that at the end of the day, even the outcome of these conferences would be able to tell us whether indeed it is a direction that we should consider going. Okay. But I am convinced that undoubtedly many people would be interested in us reinstituting our PTAs. But let me make a quick observation. I think that with the greatest of respect to the players, I do not think that we succeeded in giving the needed coverage to this all-important educational conference. Something needs to be done, because on my way here, I got calls and people did not even know that the discussions were to kickstart today. So there's the need for the Ministry of Education to more or less empower its PR unit to take active role, especially maybe engaging with the National Commission on Civic Education, to see how they can inform Ghanaians or keep them abreast with discussions ongoing there. And if there's a way we can also layer the engagement, where we can have a conference, first of all, to engage the students themselves about their views on Free Senior High School and how we could help address it. Then maybe we move on to another layer of engaging student leaders. Because if you look at the architecture of the National Union of Ghana Students alone, I remember they have about 5 institutional blocks where we are dealing with the regional SRCs, the University Students Association of Ghana, Teacher Trainees Association of Ghana, that is TAC, and so on. We should be able, as a government, to meet these sector heads of the student unions and engage them and expect papers from them when it comes to the implementation of the Free Senior High School and to a very large extent, reform in our educational sector in general. Then possibly we move on to parents, their views, the challenges they have had over the years when it comes to the implementation of the Free Senior High School, and not just the Free Senior High School, to a very large extent to the educational sector at the tertiary level. There's the need for that layered approach of engagement, so that at the end of the day, whatever we produce from the conference becomes a holistic representation of the expectations of the Ghanaian people. Okay. But if we approach it in a way that denies people the opportunity to have input, then it becomes a little bit problematic. It will be taken over by so-called experts, forgive my language, who would fashion out modalities or policies for us to come and implement, and which at the end of the day might not really be responding to the needs of students and parents as well. Okay. So my appeal to the education ministry, is to have a real look at the way this whole structured engagement is going to happen, and if there's a need for us to make some adjustments to make it possible for us to have all kinds of opinion from the student level to the teachers level and to the parents level. Okay. It should be made possible so that it becomes something that the whole nation can take pride in and support, depending on the outcome of that particular conference.
I mean, Doc, I'm looking at an IMF document, January 2024, country reports number 24 on 30 on Ghana. And this is what the country told the IMF under public spending efficiency. We told the IMF that we're going to review and rationalize the free SHS program. And I earlier was trying to pick Dr. Anti's views on whether we have to take a second look at the current arrangement where we simply pay for everyone. I mean, it's one argument that the political parties have. Basically, sometimes they seem to be approaching it, sometimes they seem to be running away from it. I mean, as an economist, where do you stand on this?
No, there are certain sectors of the economy that should not be politicized at all. Unfortunately, a sector like education, unfortunately, has been politicized, especially when it comes to the secondary level. The reason is that one of the most important stakeholders in our educational sector at the secondary level is the parents, because they produce the children to school. No, so because the children leave the parent to school, and then after school they come back to the parent. So you cannot take the parent out of the equation. Looking at the value chain of education, you can't take parents out at all. I would say they are the most important, stakeholder in the whole value chain of education. Unfortunately, the previous government has done a lot in education. When talk of infrastructure, they've really done a lot. But like it is said, negative news sells more. When they were implementing the free senior high school, there was so much of a rush. And so there was no time to, bring everyone on board. And so they just said, we want to do free SHS, and then let's do it. And so...
In fact, they took over in January. They started in September.
Exactly. Yeah. They didn't. So you see, this is, even though it's a campaign promise, it's a national issue. So don't implement or don't roll it out as a political program, because education is the foundation of the whole economy. And so if you don't give people the best of education, you are destroying the foundation of the economy, and then the future as well. So it's very important that we bring in the parents. So if you look at the challenges that the educational sector has faced, it all hovers around free SHS. That if government has opened up and allowed other stakeholders to come in, it could have been implemented in a very good manner, such that the challenges that we are facing now, we wouldn't. Because I believe government itself did not appreciate the challenges that the free SHS was facing. And I believe it's because they were not talking to the right stakeholders.
Do you think it's time we look at who we pay for? Must we pay for everyone?
I believe that looking at Ghana as a country, where we have come now, paying for everybody at the secondary level shouldn't be a problem for us. It shouldn't be a problem, because that should be the basic level that we should make sure that everybody attain, if nothing at all. Everybody should get to that level. So for me, paying for everybody, look, when we talk of the free senior high school, those who are far away, the kind of benefit it has brought to people, you underestimate it. Even if you see, especially when the financial crisis came in, when the DDEP came in, when the economy was facing crisis, people at certain level will have struggled to still send their children to school, because the economy crashed. And incomes, they don't go up. So how do you expect them? And people are having about 2 or 3 children going to the school at the same time. So free SHS has come to help very well. Unfortunately, it was rolled out as a political program, so major stakeholders were not brought on board to look at it as a national policy that will help or benefit everybody, so that there will be a win-win. Unfortunately, it was rolled out as a political program.
Okay. Nana, I'll give you the final word on the education conference that is taking place, the review And what are your own expectations?
Yes. You know, when Doc was talking about the free SHS and its implementation, if you noticed, he said that there was a rush in implementing the program. That is one. Two, it presupposes that probably the plan itself could have been looked at again, and how to even go about its implementation. And that is why I was telling my brother that it's not just about mismanagement, but about having a strategic plan and having in it an implementation strategy of the policy you intend to give to the people. Mismanagement is just one aspect of it. I hope you now get the...
He will disagree with you still.
No, that is not... for him, he will forever...
That he admits that management is one of them.
So you see,
okay, then we'll free the compromise now.
I do not want us to just limit it on mismanagement.
Okay.
It's even about the thinking that goes into it, and what we intend to achieve, and how we intend to go. The free SHS, I think that every well-meaning Ghanaian would agree that there is the need for a review of the free SHS, especially when it comes to the financing of it, and when it comes to the way and manner in which even the growth of our children, our brothers and sisters, what becomes of them after senior high school. I think that we all agree that there is a need for a review, but how to go about the review is the problem. My brother, how do I take my child or my younger brother to school as a guardian, and I do not have a stake, or I do not have a say as to how that child is trained and how that child grows? That is the main role PTA plays. It is a platform that gives parents an opportunity, parents and guardians, an opportunity to have a say and to contribute to how the training of their children is done. The PTA played that support system role. The PTA played that level. It was another level of educational supervision, where parents would go for meetings and would tell the teachers and the educationists what they have observed from sitting at the back. And this helps informing decision making. And then you cut this off, and parents would not have any platform to contribute to the growth of their wards. I think it's a very good call for us to have the PTA back.
Okay.
You see, we live in a country where culture and tradition plays a very vital role in our orientation. And so when the society or the community within which you live, that is the parents and the guardians, are able to contribute, it gives that blend of our Ghanaian culture and traditions and orientations to the formal educational system.
Okay.
And that leads me to the fact that if we had a very active PTA, all right, the values of our society will not be at the level at which it is today.
Okay.
We need that parental guide in our educational system to help us develop that mindset change, even to becoming patriotic citizens. All right? I remember in those days when I was in Bethel Methodist in Tamale.
Okay.
When parents were coming for PTA meetings, some would come holding, what is it? There was this book we used to have, in addition to life skills, that adolescent book, Courtesy for Boys and Girls. We can't even find it in the system again. And there are a lot of benefits having an active PTA.
Okay.
All right. I mean, you were talking about the financial contributions whatsoever. Those days when we were in school, a single parent could be touched to provide the school with furniture.
That's true. That's true.
And mostly, I mean, of course, those times they were the PTA chairmen and all that. You understand?
Yeah.
But they played a vital role.
Okay.
And if we are bringing it back, it is a good call.
All right.
But where I want to add up my voice to my brother, that the PR didn't go well.
Yeah.
The publicity. When I was coming, I was listening to the news, and I'm told that even the Catholic Bishops' Conference and the Christian Council are not happy that they were not invited to this program. Now, if this is true, then I think that leader Haruna Idrisu should take a step to apologizing to them and dealing with that matter.
Okay.
And whoever was responsible to inviting stakeholders to this particular conference should answer to it, because you cannot do away with the Catholic society and the Christian society and even the Islamic society.
Yeah, of course.
When it comes to education in our system, when it comes to education, when it comes to healthcare, and all of that, you can't rule them out.
And that is why I emphasized on the need for the PR, because I have been hugely disappointed in terms of the handling of the issue of PR when it comes to the conference. And you see, it is a major contributor.
I've just allowed you to flow. When I also start, don't interject again.
That I relax.
I'm quiet. I was just simply trying to add what the concerns you are expressing. So I'm quiet.
So it is important.
That is what happens when you complete a grade school. You are impatient.
At a point, all right, I think that even our chieftaincy society, all right, our chieftaincy, all of them would have to be involved in this discussion.
Thank you very much. So that is all time will allow us this morning. You just heard Nanaya Sapon. He's a senior aide to Alan Kojo, chairman of the Movement of Change. You also heard from Hamza Suhini Saibu. He is a legal practitioner and member of the National Democratic Congress communications team. Dr. Peter Tekwe joined us as well. He's an economic policy analyst. Dr. Peter Pate joined us from the Volta region where this conference is taking place, and we'll bring you updates from that particular conference as well. I am Joseph Akabile. The show continues. Do not walk away from your sets. Continue watching.